What if I told you that there was something on the far side of the moon that NASA never wanted us to know about? Something so surprising, so unbelievable, that it could completely change what we understand about the origin of life, the future of humanity, and even our own longevity. What is really hidden in that unexplored region, always facing the infinity of space, far from the eyes of Earth? In recent years, more and more leaked documents, questionable images, and reports from astronauts indicate that the moon may not just be a dead and inhospitable satellite, but rather a strategic point full of mysteries that defy logic. What if there is something else there? Structure, a sign of intelligence, or even a technology that defies time and human aging? Imagine a resource, a material, an extraterrestrial substance that could revolutionize the science of longevity. Something capable of regenerating cells, strengthening DNA, and increasing our ability to resist time. Is it a coincidence that major space powers have shown a growing interest in colonizing the moon, but have avoided publishing clear images of the far side as much as possible? NASA has already confirmed that there are very rare substances on the moon, including the mysterious helium-3, an extremely valuable element that could be the key to a new energy era. But what else could be hidden? There are reports that scientists have analyzed particles from the moon with extreme antioxidant properties, capable of protecting against cellular damage that leads to aging. If this is true, could we be on the verge of the greatest discovery in history? But why doesn't this information reach us? Why do we always only hear a superficial version of what's on the moon? If astronauts have already claimed to have seen something strange there, are we being manipulated? The fact is that the more we explore space, the more we realize that life can be much more complex than we imagine. Could it be that on the far side of the moon, there exists a secret capable of transforming not only our understanding of the universe, but also our very existence? Today, we will analyze evidence, testimonies, and theories that may reveal what NASA has been hiding from us. And I guarantee you will never see the moon the same way again. But before we reveal this shocking information, don't let this truth be lost. If NASA is really hiding something on the far side of the moon, we need to spread this investigation. Leave your like and subscribe now. This ensures you receive more content like this and helps expose what many try to hide. NASA has a history of co-silente. NASA has a history of hide data, edit images, and mute information. Why were so many lunar missions terminated without explanation? What did they really find? There is something so impactful on the moon. Why do they avoid talking about it? We are living at a pivotal moment in space exploration. Interest in lunar bases grows, but so do the mysteries surrounding the moon. Staying informed about this is essential. What if the answers to humanity's biggest questions, are they hidden there? If you haven't clicked the like button yet, do it now and activate the bell, because what comes next may change everything we know about the moon and about ourselves. The far side of the moon has always been shrouded in mystery. Unlike the visible face, which we admire every night in the sky, this region remains forever in the darkness of the unknown. But why does this happen? The moon is gravitationally locked with the Earth, which means that she always shows us the same side while the other remains hidden. This phenomenon, called synchronized rotation, made the far side of the moon a true cosmic enigma. For centuries, scientists and astronomers have speculated about what could lie in this unexplored part. Without direct visual access, many theories began to emerge. Some suggested that this side would be totally different from the visible face, perhaps with more rugged landscapes, strange geological formations, or even structures that defy conventional explanations. But the real shock came when the first images of this region began to be captured by space missions. In 1959, the Soviet probe Manager 3 was the first to photograph the far side of the moon, revealing a surface full of craters and with few smooth plains different from the face facing the Earth. Since then, several missions have explored this unknown part, but, interestingly, no human crew has ever set foot there. Why? What prevents manned missions from exploring this territory? And why? Do NASA and other space agencies treat this region with so much caution to this day? In recent years, leaked documents and statements from former NASA scientists have raised questions about what was actually found on the far side of the moon. Blurred images, edited files, and absolute silence about certain discoveries increases suspicions even further. What could NASA be hiding? And it doesn't stop there. The far side of the moon has something that makes it even more special. It is the only lunar region permanently isolated from radio, transmissions, and signals from Earth. This means that if there were any secret bases, military operations, or even signs of advanced technology there, it would be extremely difficult to detect them. And that is exactly why so many theories have emerged around this region. Many researchers believe that this side of the moon may contain artificial structures, signs of past civilizations, or even bases secretly built by space agencies. After all, why was China the first country to land a probe on the far side of the moon, only in 2019? More than 50 years after man's arrival on the moon. If this region was so important, why did it take so long to be explored? And the most intriguing, are there secret missions going on there right now? Some theorists suggest that high-level military programs may be operating on the far side of the moon without the population knowing. The existence of a project of secret colonization has already been debated by experts. And even former high-ranking officials have suggested that there is something being hidden from humanity. NASA itself has already admitted that there were unexplained failures in some lunar missions, especially when they tried to delve deeper into exploring the hidden side. Cut radio signals, equipment that stopped working for no apparent reason, and records of electromagnetic anomalies always generated more questions than answers. Could it be that some unknown force is preventing explorers from advancing in this region? And then the big question arises. Are we alone in the universe, or is there something, or someone, on the far side of the moon? There are reports from astronauts who claim to have seen strange flashes of light, moving objects, and signs that this region may not be as uninhabited as we thought. Stories like these were censored, discredited, and, in many cases, simply disappeared from official records, and that's why staying informed on this topic is so important. The information that reaches us is controlled and often edited before being released. If something really was found on the far side of the moon, why can't we? No. If there is nothing special about this region, why do so many images seem to undergo changes before being published? Now I want to hear from you. What is your opinion about the far side of the moon? Does NASA really tell us everything, or is there something much bigger going on behind the scenes? Comment the word below, mystery, if you believe there is something being hidden or coincidence. If you think everything is just theories, I'm going to read the comments and want to know what you think about it. And don't forget, what comes next could completely change the way you view the moon and all of space exploration. From the first images taken of the far side of the moon, something didn't seem right. The lunar surface there had an abnormal number of craters, inexplicable formations, and an almost total absence of the vast, smooth plains that we see on the visible side. But what really caught our attention were certain structures that did not look natural. Some of these formations had symmetrical geometric patterns, precise alignments, and a design that suggested something more than simple asteroid impacts. This raised a disturbing question. Were these structures formed naturally, or were they evidence of something much more advanced than we imagine? Over the years, some images captured by lunar missions have been released to the public, but always with low resolution and questionable quality. Several image editing experts and former space agency employees say there are clear signs of manipulation in many of these photographs. This leads us to another question. Why hide something if there is nothing to fear? Leaked reports, allegedly hacked from NASA databases, have yielded intriguing information. Some mentioned cylindrical objects. Others spoke of structures that appeared to be abandoned buildings, something that should not exist on a satellite supposedly devoid of any artificial activity. Some of these images, after being analyzed, showed signs of rough editing, where certain points on the lunar surface appeared to have been digitally erased or smoothed. One of the most intriguing of these supposed pieces of evidence came from a document attributed to a former member of NASA, which described a gigantic pyramidal structure located in the hidden side region. Apparently, this anomaly would have been captured by a robotic mission in the 1960s, but it was never disclosed to the public. The most shocking thing is that this information matches theories that suggest that ancient civilizations possibly had contact with superior intelligences. Could this lunar pyramid be evidence of this? Another detail that draws attention is the strange lights observed on the lunar surface. Since the 19th century, astronomers have reported bright flashes and luminosity changes on the moon, especially in little explored regions. But with the advancement of technology and the sending of probes, these observations were not only confirmed, but were also recorded on video by several missions. NASA often explains these phenomena as atmospheric effects of light or micrometeorite impacts. But the problem is that these lights often follow a specific pattern, appearing at regular times or even in locations close to some of these mysterious structures. If these lights are not natural phenomena, what could they be? Some ufology experts believe they could be traces of active technology on the moon, something that could indicate the presence of a hidden base. If this is true, then NASA and other space agencies have known this for a long time, but have chosen to keep everything secret. But perhaps the most disturbing evidence is the testimony of astronauts who have been to the moon. Many of them have reported to have seen something inexplicable, but were forced to remain silent. Buzz Aldrin, the second man to set foot on the moon, has already mentioned in interviews that something accompanied them during the Apollo 11 mission. However, he could never give more details about it. Some astronauts who participated in other lunar missions also stated that they felt a strange presence, and that, at certain moments, heard unusual sounds through their radios. Even when there was no one talking, if astronauts saw something on the moon and couldn't share it, that means there is a level of censorship that prevents this information from reaching the public. But who controls this? The government? The space agencies? Or is there something even deeper behind this mystery? What if I told you that are there any indications that the moon may not just be a natural satellite, but rather a modified or even artificial object? Some theories suggest that the far side of the moon could contain the remains of an ancient technological structure, something that was left behind by an unknown civilization. If this is true, humanity is faced with one of the greatest secrets in its entire history. Now think with me. If something like this really exists on the moon, why have human space missions never returned? After all, the last time a human being set foot on the moon was in 1972, with Apollo 17. Since then, no manned mission has been sent there, despite gigantic advances in technology. Were they warned not to come back? Is there something there that cannot be revealed to the world? If you think this evidence is convincing, comment here, Secret Base, so we can discuss this further. But if you think it's all just a big misunderstanding, write scientific explanation and tell me what you think. I want to know your opinion on this mystery. And if you found this information shocking, just wait until you see what comes next. The upcoming tests could change everything you know about the moon, and even about humanity itself. The accounts of astronauts and military personnel about what they really saw in space are, without a doubt, one of the most intriguing points in this story. If those who were there, face to face with the unknown, saw something that cannot be explained, why is it systematically ignored? Why isn't this information reaching the public the way it should? And most importantly, what did they actually witness? Buzz Aldrin, the second man to set foot on the moon during the Apollo 11 mission, has already hinted in several interviews that something was watching your team during the mission. According to him, a mysterious light accompanied the spacecraft at one point, but any attempt to talk about it publicly was quickly hushed up. Aldrin even mentioned that the object could be part of the rocket that took them into space, but experts ruled out this possibility, as all parts of the ship had been monitored and none of them could have caused this effect. Another famous case is that of Apollo 14 astronaut Edgar Mitchell, who not only confirmed that he believes in extraterrestrial life, as he also stated that the United States government has been hiding information about unexplained encounters for decades in space. Mitchell was one of the most respected astronauts of his time, with an impeccable record. But when he began to speak out on this subject, he was discredited and his credibility was called into question. What's curious is that this is the same pattern that happens whenever someone within the system decides to talk more than they should. But it's not just astronauts who make these reports. Many military personnel involved in secret missions, especially those operating within advanced aerospace projects, have also confirmed that unknown objects have been spotted in lunar orbit and around Earth. Some of these records are kept under strict secrecy, classified as top secret. But occasionally, information leaks that make it clear that there is something much bigger than we can imagine going on behind the scenes. One of these leaked documents was found among FBI files and mentions a U.S. Air Force report about unusual structures on the lunar surface and unexplained phenomena occurring on the far side of the moon. This report, although never officially recognized by the government, corroborates the countless testimonies of astronauts who reported seeing something that defies any logical explanation. Another emblematic case occurred during the Apollo 17 mission, the last manned mission to the moon. Astronaut Eugene Cernan, mission commander, blurted out an enigmatic phrase during a live broadcast. "You'll never believe what we're seeing here." The audio was quickly cut off, and, when it was restored, Cernan was already talking about something else, as if nothing had happened. But the burning question is, what exactly did he see? And we cannot forget the case of astronaut Gordon Cooper, who even before going into space already had a history of sightings of unidentified bucktails, flying objects while piloting military aircraft. When he finally got the chance to go to space, Cooper claimed to have seen objects that appeared to be monitoring human missions. He even wrote reports about it, but this information was quickly classified as confidential. What is interesting is that, in the last years of his life, he began to speak openly about what he saw, insisting that the government was hiding the truth and that people needed to know what was really happening. And it's not just American astronauts who have reported these events. Soviet pilots and cosmonauts also reported strange sightings in space. During the Soyuz 22 mission, cosmonauts reported have seen pulsating lights moving erratically in Earth's orbit. The Soviet government classified the case as an optical anomaly, but experts who analyzed the reports say that the behavior of these lights cannot be explained by known natural phenomena. But perhaps one of the most striking cases is the testimony of a former Pentagon member who worked directly on investigations related to unidentified aerial phenomena. This soldier, whose identity was preserved for security reasons, revealed that the United States government maintains detailed records of UFO sightings on the moon and in space, and that some of this information has been shared only with a select group within defense agencies. If all this were just hallucination or coincidence, why do so many astronauts, military personnel, and experts share such similar accounts? And why are those who attempt to speak publicly about these events immediately discredited or subject to reprisals? The fact is that these testimonies cannot be ignored. If astronauts saw something on the moon that shouldn't be there, And if governments keep that information secret, then there's something much bigger going on behind the scenes. But what exactly? Is there some intelligent force operating on the far side of the moon? Are we being monitored for something we don't understand? Or do some nations already know about this and are acting behind the scenes to silently explore this technology? Now I want to know your opinion. Do you believe these astronauts actually saw something that defies logic? Comment here, eyewitness, if you think they really witnessed something extraordinary. Or coincidence. It is believed that everything can be explained rationally. I want to see what you guys think about this. And if these reports were already shocking to you, get ready, because what comes next could be even more disturbing. The evidence we are going to analyze now could be the final piece of this puzzle. If there is one place in the solar system that awakens a deep and unsettling mystery, it is the far side of the moon, the fact that we can never see it directly. From Earth, coupled with the countless reports of lunar anomalies, raises an intriguing question. Has the moon ever been, or still is, used as a base by some advanced civilization? Ufologists and independent researchers have suggested for decades that the moon could be much more than a simple natural satellite. For many, it is an ideal strategic point for Earth observation, a discrete location beyond the reach of radars and sensors, where something or someone could operate without being detected. And we're not just talking about unsubstantiated theories. There are records of unexplained signals coming from the moon. Strange interference picked up by radios from different parts of the world and magnetic anomalies that simply do not make sense within what we know of lunar geology. In 1969, during the Apollo 11 mission, shortly after landing in the Sea of Tranquility, one of the most emblematic moments in human history occurred. But few know that behind the scenes, astronauts reported something unexpected. The official broadcast was cut off for a few minutes, and when it returned, everything seemed normal. However, years later, information leaked that Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, they reportedly described the presence of strange lights and gigantic structures around the landing site. These reports were quickly discredited, and NASA never confirmed the information. And it wasn't just Apollo 11. During the Apollo 12 mission, one of the astronauts recorded a strange metallic reflection coming from a nearby crater, something he described as an unusual glow, as if something there was reflecting the sun's light in a very precise way. No official explanation was given, and the recording of this account was cut off shortly afterwards. This brings us to a question that simply cannot be ignored. Could it be that there is something hidden on the moon? Something that NASA knows, but that could never be revealed to the public. NASA's own old documents show that since the 19th century, there have been records of mysterious lights and inexplicable movements on the lunar surface. Astronomers from different parts of the world, using powerful telescopes for the time, reported seeing bright flashes, shifting shadows, and even bright spots that seem to appear out of nowhere. These observations have been recorded for decades and, to this day, have no definitive explanation. But what most strengthens the theory that the moon could be an extraterrestrial base are the images captured by modern probes and satellites. There are photographs that clearly show rectangular structures, organized geometric formations, and even what appear to be underground entrances in some craters. NASA has always avoided these images, claiming that they could just be optical illusions or errors in capture. But many experts disagree. After all, how many optical illusions need to be recorded before we start to question whether they really are just coincidences? Another intriguing factor is that there are lunar craters that exhibit a strange and constant glow. Something that should not happen in an environment without an atmosphere and without sources of artificial lighting. This has been recorded by state-of-the-art telescopes and even amateur astronomers. If there is nothing on the moon but rocks and dust, then why are there such light emissions? And if we talk about radio signals, the situation gets even stranger. Since the 1960s, inexplicable signals coming from the moon. Scientists have already ruled out natural interference or equipment errors. The most curious thing is that some of these signals appear to be regular pulses, as if they were some kind of artificial transmission. If this is true, then the question stops being whether there is something there and becomes who or what is emitting these signals. China, which recently sent a probe to the far side of the moon, has also recorded some of these anomalies. In 2019, the Change mission landed in this unexplored region and transmitted stunning images. But some data was simply never released. Why? The mission was entirely scientific. What would justify withholding certain information? Now, and even more. Disturbing point. What if the moon is not a natural celestial body? This theory, which at first glance seems absurd, was already raised by Russian scientists in the 1970s. According to some studies, the composition of the moon does not exactly match that of a natural object formed in Earth's orbit. There are indications that its interior may be much less dense than expected, suggesting that the moon may be hollow, or at least have vast internal cavities. Some researchers believe that the far side of the moon may hide real underground cities, which would have been there for millennia, operated by an advanced civilization, or even used as observation posts. If this theory is real, it would explain why so many space missions avoid this region, and why NASA has never shown so much interest in sending astronauts to explore the dark side. The signs are many, since geometric structures visible in official images, until strange signals captured by radio telescopes. Passing through astronaut reports and leaks of confidential documents, everything points to a possibility that, if confirmed, would completely change our view of the universe. And now comes the big question. If there is a base on the moon, who built it? Are we talking about an extraterrestrial presence operating in the shadows? Or will have governments already discovered these secrets and are using this region for something much bigger than we imagine? Now I want to know your opinion. Do you believe that the far side of the moon harbors something we don't yet know about? Comment here, hidden base. If you think there is something hidden or illusion, it is believed that all of this can have a rational explanation. I'll follow the comments and want to know what you think about it. But if this evidence is already messing with your head, get ready, because what comes next could be even more impressive. There is evidence that could change everything we know about the moon and the true history of space exploration. If there's one thing that raises suspicions about NASA and lunar exploration, it's the fact that much information appears to be carefully filtered before reaching the public. But the question we need to ask is, why? What would justify so many gaps in information? Classified documents and worse, files that simply disappeared. One of the most emblematic and inexplicable cases involves the Apollo 11 landing in 1969. This was one of the most important moments in human history, the first record of a successful trip to the surface of the moon, a feat that changed the course of science and technology. But there is one detail that simply doesn't make sense. NASA lost the original Apollo 11 mission tapes. That's right, the raw files. The direct audio and video recordings of the landing broadcast simply disappeared. And the strangest thing is not just the loss of records, but the explanation given for it. According to NASA, tapes were reused or lost during archiving processes. Like this, are we talking about one of the most important events in human history, and somehow no one bothered to keep the original records? It seems unlikely, to say the least. And this is not an isolated case. Several images of the moon released over the years have shown clear signs of manipulation. Many image editing experts point out blurring patterns, suspicious removals, and even artificial layers added to hide something in the background of some photos. But what exactly is being hidden? In 2009, NASA itself admitted to having done adjustments to photos taken by the Apollo missions. The argument used was that the files needed to be restored due to the low quality of the original images. But anyone who analyzes these images side by side realizes that, in some versions, curious details disappeared. Mainly bright spots and shadows that seemed out of touch with the lunar environment. And the case doesn't stop there. On several missions, astronauts reported unexplained interference in radio transmissions. On some occasions, there were abrupt cuts in communication, and when they returned, the astronauts changed the subject, as if they had received some instruction. This happened on different missions, and always when they were in little explored regions of the moon. Another detail that raises suspicions is the strange flight patterns of NASA and other space agencies around the moon. Why do most probes and space missions avoid spending long periods over certain regions? They exist lunar zones where almost no ships pass frequently, and if it happens, the data is rarely disclosed in depth. These regions coincidentally include areas where some of the most mysterious photos have been captured. And then an even more intriguing question arises. Why has NASA never returned to the moon with manned missions? The last manned mission was Apollo 17 in 1972. Since then, there have been more than 50 years without any new human landing on the moon. For an agency that says it wants to explore space, does it make sense to leave our own natural satellite aside for so long? Some of the explanations given over the years include budget cuts, lack of political interest, and even high risks for astronauts. But do these justifications make sense? If there was enough money to send probes to Mars, develop the James Webb Telescope, and finance new billion-dollar space missions, why is there no interest in returning to the moon with human beings? Many independent researchers believe that the answer may lie in what was found there. Some claim that the Apollo missions had access to information so shocking that the public could never have known. What if NASA discovered we're not alone? If photographic records and even physical materials collected on the moon revealed hints of unknown technology, artificial structures, or something that challenges our understanding of the universe. There are those who believe that NASA maintains contact with other entities, whether through secret government agencies or through parallel military projects. Why are so many private companies, like SpaceX and Blue Origin, being encouraged to enter the space race right now? Is this part of a larger plan to make space exploration something exclusive to corporations? Beyond the reach of the population and without the need to disclose discoveries to the public? And there is another curious factor. Governments around the world seem to work together to prevent certain space information from being released. At different times in history, scientists, researchers, and even former NASA employees have tried to divulge secrets that they discovered during their time at the agency. Many of these reports were censored, discredited, or simply disappeared from the media. NASA may not be alone in this game. Organizations like CIA and the U.S. Space Force have already shown interest in lunar activities, suggesting that what happens on the moon could have military and strategic implications. Well, what could be so critical as to justify decades of secrecy and absolute silence? Now I want to know your opinion. Do you think NASA really lost the footage of the moon landing? Or was this just an excuse to hide something bigger? Comment here, cover-up, if you believe information is being hidden, or human error. If you think this is all just a big coincidence. I want to know what you guys think about this. But if you think everything we've said so far has been shocking, just wait until you see what comes next. The upcoming evidence could completely change the way we understand space exploration and the history of humanity itself. If all this information is true, what does this really mean for the future of humanity? If there's something on the moon that NASA doesn't want us to know, what else could be being hidden from us? And more importantly, if we have already found evidence of technology or even advanced civilizations on the moon, why are these discoveries not shared with the population? We are on the cusp of a pivotal moment in history. Space missions are advancing rapidly. Private companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, and even governments in emerging countries are investing billions in space exploration and lunar colonization projects. But the big question is, why now? Why the sudden interest in returning to the moon after more than 50 years? Some theories suggest that the race to the moon and Mars is not just a scientific or commercial issue, but rather a desperate attempt to prepare humanity for something to come. Whether it's an external threat, an inevitable cosmic event, or even the discovery that we were never alone, there is a clear effort to ensure that only a few have access to the most important information. If we confirm that there is alien technology on the moon, it could completely change everything we know about science, engineering, and even our own evolution. What would happen if we discovered that our current technology is rudimentary compared to what has existed for millennia hidden on the far side of the moon? Are governments and corporations already trying to reproduce this technology secretly, without us knowing? This also raises another question. If there is a presence on the moon, how long has it been there? We may be talking about a civilization much older than ours, which may have visited Earth at some point, and which is now just observing from afar, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. If that is the case, are we prepared for this meeting? What if all this is kept secret because do the world's elites already know that our society is not ready to deal with a revelation of this magnitude? Imagine the global impact that news of this level would cause. Political and religious systems would collapse. Economies would be affected. The concept of power would completely change. Human beings would no longer be the dominant species and would become just one among many. But there is something even more worrying. What if the presence on the moon is not friendly? Many wonder if this possible hidden technology is being studied to prepare ourselves for a possible confrontation, or if we are already dealing with a force that has been monitoring us for centuries without us having any chance to fight back. If this knowledge already exists, why is it restricted to a small group? Who is in control of this information? Who decides what we can and cannot know? What is really happening in space while humanity is distracted by problems created here on Earth? Now I want to know what you think about all this. Do you believe there is something much bigger going on behind the scenes? Something that could change the future of humanity? Comment here, global change, if you believe we are about to discover something transformative, or manipulation. If you think this might all be just one big game of control. I'll follow the comments and want to know your opinion on this mystery. And if you think what we've said so far has been surprising, just wait until you see what comes next. The final evidence could be the missing piece to reveal what is really being hidden from us, given everything we've explored so far. One thing is clear. There is much more to the moon than we are told. The anomalies, the reports from astronauts, the images that appear to have been edited, the inexplicable signals picked up by radio telescopes, and the sudden interest in colonizing space, all point to a truth that has not yet been fully revealed. If NASA and other agencies really knew something extraordinary on the moon, do you think they would tell us? Or will certain information never reach the public? After all, if there is advanced technology or some unknown presence on the far side of the moon, what does that mean for the future of humanity? If we have been observed for a long time, who is in control of this information? If there is such a big secret being kept by governments and corporations, why don't we have the right to know? Many will say that all of this is nothing more than a conspiracy theory, that science already has answers to all these doubts. But then, why do so many questions remain unanswered? If there is nothing to hide, why are there reports of astronauts being silenced, documents disappearing, images altered, and missions having their information completely restricted? How many coincidences do we need before we start to question the official version? What was found on the moon could change not only the way we see space, but also our very existence. There is something there that defies everything we know. Why does humanity still live in ignorance? What would happen if tomorrow the truth was revealed? How would this change our beliefs, our political systems, our economy? Is the global elite already aware of this? What if there is already a plan in place to ensure that only a select group have access to this technology and knowledge about what is really hidden on the moon? The truth is that many questions remain unanswered. But if there's anything we've learned so far, it's that the more we investigate, the more we realize that reality can be much more surprising than any fiction. Now, I want to know your opinion. Is NASA hiding something about the moon, or is this all just speculation? Comment here, the truth will come to light, if you believe we are on the verge of a great revelation. Or mere coincidence, if you think all this can be explained in a conventional way. I'll follow the comments and want to know what you think about this mystery. I know you've come this far, so it's because something inside you knows the truth is being hidden. Then, don't stop now. Subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and continue this investigation with me. Together, we can go deeper into this mystery. And so I know that you are part of this quest. Comment now. The truth cannot be hidden. This will show that you do not accept ready-made versions and are here to question. Have you ever stopped to think about everything that surrounds man's arrival on the moon? The inconsistencies, the suspicious images, the controversial statements. There are those who say that we have gone too far to simply accept the official version if everything we've said here has made you question what we really know about the moon, so you need to see what comes next. In the next video, let's explore the contradictions, the deleted files, and the details that raise one of the biggest questions in modern history. Was man's arrival on the moon exactly as we were told? I'll wait for you there.